Hello, my friends. It's Bonnie's from Bonnie's Best Hoosier Treasures. I'm baking at the Hoosier today, and I hope you're having a great day. I am. It's sunny but cool out today, but I have had a request on how I make my pie pastry. Now, I love baking, and but oftentimes when I do my baking, I might do it in large quantities to save me time. So today I'm going to make pie pastry, but I am going to make enough pastry for, say, 4 or 5 pies. So this is what I do. In a bowl, I'm going to measure about 5.5. This is a 2-cup measuring cup. So that's 4 and about 5.5 of flour. To that, I'm going to add about a teaspoon of salt. I'm just going to mix that around. Now I'm making a whole batch, okay, so that you know what I'm doing. To that, now I use lard. Lard is my favorite. People use shortening, people use butter. My preference is lard. So you can buy it any way you want it. You can buy it whatever brand. I often will get it on sale or just even buy the no name. So there you go. Now don't forget, this is a lot of lard, but we're making enough for pastry for 4 or 5 pies. So what I'm going to do is cut this through into my flour. Now people have a pastry knife. I don't. Now what I like when I'm baking, I love I don't know, when I bake, it stirs memories in me. I don't know, even the bowls I bake in belong to my mom. So when I bake, this gives me pleasure. And I love baking from scratch. It's just in me. If I can make it cheaper and make it in large quantities and saving me time, then I enjoy that. But sure, you can go and buy yourself a pre-made pastry crust. You can do that. But I like to do it this way now. And this is what I love. What we're going to do is mix that lard. Just use it with your fingers. I guess this is an adult way of playing with Play-Doh. I guess, you know. But to me, God made our fingers before forks, so why not use it? So I'm just going to keep working that lard into my pastry till it looks almost like oatmeal. There's something about just getting your hands into it. I've been baking all my life. My first encounter of cooking and baking was one Christmas, actually it was New Year's, and my mom took deadly sick with pneumonia. And my grandma and her friend, Miss Gibson, were coming for New Year's dinner. Now, my grandma looked forward to coming for dinner, so Mom didn't want to disappoint her. And every New Year's Eve or New Year's dinner, Mom would cook a goose. Not a turkey, a goose. Don't ask me why, but it was a goose. Well, Mom was sick in bed, and she said, Bonnie, you gotta help me. You gotta cook the duck. I said, what? So she, from her bed, she showed me or told me. So that was my first encounter. I think I was only about 11 years old. I have no idea where my sisters were. I don't know. Maybe they just took off. I don't know. But that was my first taste of cooking and baking. And of course, watching my mom, it intrigued me what she did. And then I took off from there. So there you go. It's almost... Now, you don't have to, sometimes to have chunks of lard through your pastry makes for a better pastry. You don't have to have it completely fine. So there you go. So there's my pastry. My lard, salt, and flour. Now what I'm going to do, now this is a 2-cup measuring. So what I'm going to do, to that cup, I'm going to add an egg. And for your people that are like things done right or need specific, I'm adding a tablespoon of lemon juice or vinegar. It doesn't matter. Just mix that up. My mom grew up in the Depression, so they used what they had. Lard, they couldn't get butter, so they used lard or that, and whatever was in the fridge, whether it was lemon juice or whether it was vinegar. Now, to this, I'm going to add a cup of cold water. Some people use ice water. I just use the cold water that I've had in the fridge. And to this mixture, I'm just drizzling that. So now, we're gonna just mix that in. Pie pastry is different than dough pastry. As you know, you want a nice flaky pie crust. So what you need to do is make sure you never over mix. So this is where, again, what I'm going to do is get my hands. Yes, you can use a food processor, but somehow I like it to get my hands in there because I want to mix it in really good and slowly. So I'm just mixing and squeezing, mixing and gathering all that dough. Here we go. Just gather it all up. Turn it over gently. You're not kneading it like pie dough or bread dough. This is pie. Everybody has their different ways of doing things. This is mine. Just make sure. Yep, it takes time and patience, but like I said, There's something about working with that dough that just gives me pleasure. And then I know that it makes people happy when they have fresh pie. Okay, that's it. Okay, so that's pretty well, that's all mixed. Okay, set that aside. And what I'm going to do is divide this dough as evenly as I can into about 4 or 5 . I'm going to try. Now, as you know, I have sons, so when I make pies, they're not little tiny pies. Usually they're deep dish pies. So if you use an aluminum pan, you might be able to get 6 out of there. All right, so there's my rounds. Now what I'm going to do, I have saran here. I'm going to wrap each one of these in saran. Then I'm going to flatten it. There's one, put that aside. It's very simple. Doesn't really take a lot of time. There's my second one, flatten into a disc. Just with saran. I have one of those easy wrap saran things, and that goes, we've put that into the Hoozer. I love it. Okay, there's 4, and I'm doing one more. Now each one, these discs, I'm going to put in the fridge, and in order for the gluten to do its thing, I want these refrigerated overnight. If I wasn't going to use all of these right away, each one of these discs I would put them in a Ziploc bag and freeze them, and then you can bring them out as you need them, so that you would just defrost it in the fridge overnight, and then you have a pie pastry ready for your pie. So that's it. That's how I do it. Now, today I'm going to be making a strawberry rhubarb pie, so I will show you how I roll these out. Okay, so stay tuned. All right. I've brought my pie dough out of the fridge, and if it's super cold or from the freezer, just keep it in the fridge overnight. Otherwise, just bring it out of the fridge, unwrap it, and lightly just put some flour on your surface. Okay, so I'm going just to dust the top and the bottom. Now, We're not gonna just if it cracks, just keep bringing it in. Just be gentle. You don't want to overdo it. I'm gonna a little bit, just flour on top, and so that I can flip it back over. If it cracks, just start bringing it in. Just take your time. You know what? Remember that phrase? Just work it, work it. Just, you want it to be the size of whatever pie plate you're gonna put it in. I'm putting it in this size, what, an 8-9 inch pie plate. There are deeper ones, so it's whatever. And just, you don't want to just plunk it, just roll it. And like I say, if you get a crack, then just use your fingers, your warm fingers, to bring that in. All right, pretty well there. All right, this is the fun part. But you know what? Don't overthink it. I'm going to gently bring my pie dough and I'm going to fold it in half. It may crack, but if you go slow, just go slow. You could even fold it over this way. Now, depending on your temperature outside, if it's hot and humid, it might be harder. There. Okay, now I'm going to bring it up very slowly. Don't rush it. Okay, put this as much in the center as you can, and bring it, fold it. Oh, there. Now you could try to adjust a little bit. There. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to gently, with my fingers, just mold it into that pie plate. Some of the edges might be thicker. Just bring it up close to. Okay. I love utility scissors. If you haven't got any, invest. Utility, you can use it for all kinds of things. Cutting meat, and saves you time. Now, I'm only going to do one shell because I am going to make a rhubarb strawberry crumble pie. So I'm not going to put a top on this. If I was going to put a top on top, I would put my filling in there, roll out your pie dough a little bit longer or wider than your pie plate, and then you'd fold the edges over. If you need me to show you how I do that in the next segment, then just let me know. Some of these things we take for granted that I think people know how to do it. There. Now there's my nice, now this pastry will puff out as it cooks. I'm going to put that in the fridge while I prepare my filling. All right? All right, strawberry rhubarb pie. I'm going to start off by making the filling, my fruit filling first, and then I'm going to show you how I do a crumble top. So in this bowl, I have 2 cups of sliced fresh strawberries, and to that I'm going to add 3 cups of rhubarb. Rhubarb and strawberries go together perfectly. Now, I told you I use utility knives. Guess what? I use it. Forget about the chopping with a knife. These scissors are amazing. It does the job quicker than standing and chopping. Now, rhubarb is so sour if you were to eat it now. My mom says that her and her sister used to get sprigs of rhubarb with a bowl of sugar, dip it in raw, and eat it. I've tried it and I don't know how they did it, so I'm chopping this rhubarb that I've showed you that is growing in my garden. If you have rhubarb, I'm telling you, it comes up every year. You can freeze it, chop it like this and freeze it in for throughout the year. Or the best way is to make it fresh. Everything's better fresh. And you know what? Some of these stalks at the bottom get pretty thick. That's okay. These will soften up really nice. I've got lots of recipes that call for rhubarb, and if you go online, there's rhubarb dump cake. Have you ever made that? That's pretty yummy. And I think I have one more. I had a hard time growing rhubarb for a while. I think the rabbits kept eating it, so it didn't come back. But I think it's under control. All right, so there's my rhubarb. And you know what? You don't have to have exact proportions. You don't. Let me get a spoon. Baking is like how you like it to taste. Okay, to this fruit mixture, I'm going to add a half a cup of sugar, white sugar, and a half a cup of brown sugar. And I'm going to add to that a half a cup of flour. That's going to bind it all together. And of course a little bit of salt. Salt just always balances things out. And a tablespoon of lemon juice. You don't want a whole lot of liquid in that because fruit, as it cooks, it releases its own liquid. So I'm going to mix that all up. There's nothing better than the smell of fresh baked pie. It's so good. Alright, so I am mixing that all up, and I'm going to set that aside while I make my crumble top. So there you go. If you had you were gluten-free, instead of flour, I would use cornstarch. So you could do it that way as well. All right, but today I'm using the flour. All right, now I'm gonna make my crumble top. I use Becel. You can use butter. Butter would maybe taste richer, but I don't always have butter. Becel is my go-to, and especially when we're filling our fridge with things that will last longer, it seems like for me the margarine or Becel is better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put into a bowl a half a cup of margarine. And what I'm going to do this time when I'm doing this tutorial, I'm going to list all the ingredients below because we're doing this in different stages, okay? And then we're going to do a quarter cup of flour. So this is 1 cup. It's less than half. You know what? I'm just a regular cook. I'm not an exact person. And then I'm going to do, once again, I'm going to put in a quarter cup of brown sugar and a quarter cup of rolled oats. And of course, some cinnamon. Now, cinnamon is what you want. A half a teaspoon, a teaspoon. I love cinnamon with my crumble. And I'm just going to mix that all up. This crumble is good on apple crisp, peach crisp, now lots of times if it's too wet, I go by feel. Just a little bit more flour. And taste it. You know, nothing wrong with tasting it. If you want more cinnamon after you've tasted. Okay. Actually, I think that's pretty good. All right, so now we are going to assemble our pie. All right, we're ready to put this pie together. I have a preheated oven at 400 degrees. Most fruit pies, you should start off with a higher temperature oven and then lower it. It just starts to get the juices all together. So I brought my pie crust out of the fridge, which is cold. I'm gonna put my fruit mixture that we've made in there. As this mixture has set, that a lot of the flour has been absorbed into the fruit. You don't want it too liquidy because, believe it or not, this seems thick, I know, but as it cooks, the fruit will make its own juice. But it's the flour or cornstarch that will help it to stay together. Okay, and here is my crumble that we made. And I'm gonna just put that over on the top. Just put it to the right. So I'm going to bake this at 400 degrees for about 20 minutes. And then I'm going to lower it to 350 for another 40 minutes. When you see the inside of your pie bubbling, you know it's done. I put my pie plate on a cookie sheet just in case that juice spills over, so that you're not cleaning your oven. Which I know, well, maybe you love cleaning your oven. That's one job I hate. So I'm going to put that into the oven and then see what it looks like. All right, well, there you are. There is the rhubarb strawberry crumble pie. Delicious. Let it cool on the counter for about a half an hour. Just it helps the juices just to get absorbed. And you can serve it warm with some vanilla ice cream, or cold with a big dollop of whipped cream, whatever you think you'd like. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I'd sure love to hear from you. I hope you give it a try and start baking. It's not so hard, and you know what? It's so good to be able to give somebody a treat. So God bless you, and we will see you again. Bye for now.